I'm not a very good singer. We're recording, by the way.
Oh. Like a sauna. It's a little warm.
Brought to you by Scooters.
Just kidding. We're not sponsored by anyone because we suck.
We just like scooters. It's so good. This is What's in the Box with Zach and Cheryl, as seen from the sign.
What's in the box?
What's in the fucking box?
What's in the fucking box?
What's in the box? What's it? What?
What's in the fucking box? Does it still have Jenna Pastor's head in it?
Yep.
What's in the box?
Anyway. So,
Surprised squirrels have it nested in there already.
how's it going? In her head?
Yeah. It's going. How are you?
I'm good. So, I wanted to talk about something, but your thing that you wanted to talk about kind of segues into mine. So, what did you want to talk about?
Why? Why are people obsessed with Phil?
Phil from who? Phil from where?
From Modern Family. Why are all the women on the internet like, oh, Phil, oh, I would choose Phil over anyone else. I would choose Phil over a buff guy. What? Do you guys watch the same show I'm watching? Are you watching the same show?
Also, no, they wouldn't.
No, they'd be pissed off within 10 minutes.
If a buff guy came out and you were married to Phil, it's a lie.
Well, also, Phil's ugly.
Yeah. I told you this last night. Phil is the equivalent.
The other one was Nick from New Girl.
Yeah, because everybody loves Nick.
Yeah, it was like Phil, Hal from Malcolm in the Middle, Jim from The Office, and Nick from New Girl.
I think Nick is a good pick too.
I
don't think
Nick would be funny enough to pass his toxic traits to be like, okay.
That's what I'm saying. I think that the character Nick in a actual relationship, not on TV, would be okay. I don't think it would be that bad.
See, I have a Jim, so I know better. I know that Phil is not enough.
I mean, not enough.
Phil is terrible. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is why I want to talk, and this is why I want to talk about it, because, what the fuck? Someone please explain to me what the attraction is in Phil. Because, I get it. I get Hal. Okay, I get that one. Because he loves the shit out of her.
Mm-hmm.
He would do fucking anything for her.
Even cook meth in Winnebago.
It's not the same.
I know. It's a weird sequel.
That's a weird sequel.
That's what happens when Malcolm goes to college.
So, and Jim, okay, I get Jim. Even Nick, okay, yeah, I see that one. Phil, for one, Phil sucks at his one and only job. Sucks at it. He's constantly being asked, well, don't you have an appointment today? And he's constantly no, they canceled. Sucks at his job. And he is the sole provider to this whole house. Hello? You can't suck at the only thing that anyone in the house does.
Anybody relies on you for.
Maybe find a new job, Phil, because, what the fuck? Also, he's just a terrible husband and a terrible dad. He's not on the same page with anyone in that fucking house. He has no clue what's happening around him, no clue what his kids are doing. Don't even get me started on specific episodes, because the Hawaii episode, the fuck? What do you mean you're just gonna ignore that your kids are even there and pretend that you're on a fucking honeymoon? Don't bring your kids with you then. What the fuck? Sorry. No. Phil is a no. Phil is a terrible husband, a terrible fucking dad. He's slightly funny. Not even close to as funny as the rest of the fucking family. The only thing I like about Phil in that show is his relationship with her father. That's it. That's the only thing I like about Phil in that show. Maybe it's my taste. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was already married to a Phil once, so I'm
Hot take.
no, fuck that.
Hey, do you have your phone?
I do.
I didn't see what time it was when we started.
Oh.
Okay.
Anyhow, I don't know. It just bothered me to see that because, like, I went through the comments of that Facebook post of like, instead of a buff man, this is who I want, and it was
Mhm.
like those people, and I was like, yeah, okay. And then I saw Phil, and I was like, nah, not really. And then I went through the comments expecting everyone to be like, Jim, Nick, Hal, and it was like Phil, and I'm like, no, this is what's wrong with our generation. This is why you people are in fucked up relationships.
Well, that's what I told you. It's the same. It's just the same ideology as the whole Grease thing. Is that most people, and we've talked about that before. Most people just see
Or the Notebook.
Just see it as like this is the main. Which Modern Family, it later on, it's not even the main relationship, but this is like the main like good relationship in this show or movie or whatever.
No, the two gay guys have a way better fucking relationship.
Oh, it gets
and
even,
so does Dad and fucking his wife.
It gets even better, actually. Their relationship gets even better later. But
everyone else's relationships are like superior to her and Phil's, to Claire and Phil's.
It's just based off of like what they're perceived to be shown as the good relationship. Nobody, unless you've been in toxic relationships or have come out of toxic relationships, nobody really looks into relationships as far as like media
and
goes.
Notices those things.
They just go, oh, this is what I'm being shown is like supposed to be it. So like goals. And I'm like,
and that's the thing. Like I could understand like, okay, and that's okay. So this is where people are gonna mistake me a little bit, and I understand that is they're gonna be like, okay, but Phil is the sole provider, so that's why she does everything for the family. Okay, I get that, but if he was actually sole providing, then that would be understandable. But he's never at his job.
Mm-hmm.
He's always at home. So why doesn't he know anything?
Mm-hmm.
If you are always at home, why are you not helping out around the house? Why do you not know anything about your kids? Why do you not know anything about your wife?
Mm-hmm.
I can excuse not knowing things if you're not home. Okay, I understand. You have a job that's demanding. You're there all the time. You're the sole provider. That's what you have to do. You should still know things about your kids and wife, but I get it. But every fucking episode, he's like, no, they canceled. No, I don't have that today. And then the few episodes where he actually does have something, there's always some sort of mix-up with his wife or his kids where he's using them to, like, sell the house. Like, bro, this is your job, not their job. Like, you're the realtor, not them. Like, I don't know. It just bothers me. Phil bothers me. Phil didn't bother me until all of the internet was like, ooh, we love Phil. And I was like, no.
Ew.
And now while I watch the show, all I see is people like, ooh, I love Phil. And every episode I'm like, no.
Why?
No.
Why?
No. No.
So, I was going to talk to you about social medias.
Uh-oh.
Because I had a thing, I was thinking about this the other day, and I know that we've talked about this a couple times on here, but I was thinking about it the other day that, like, and I kind of brought it up to you, I feel like there's a good and a bad with how much social media we have.
A gug.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out the word I was trying to use. But like, it's good that we have the ability to have information and like reach people. Like the fact that I could talk to my grandma in a different state, like without, like that's nice. But I also feel like the social part of it has stunted everybody, and not just. I know it'd be really easy for me to be like, our kids' generation are fucked because they don't know how to socialize and blah blah blah.
No, I'm fucked because I don't know how to socialize.
I know it's everybody though.
Yeah, it's not just my kids.
Because of that, it's an excuse. I feel like we were the last generation that had to figure out how to communicate with each other.
Had to go knock on doors
beforehand. We had to go walk down the street to ask our friend if they
Ask
had,
our friend's mom
if they
their
could
kid
play,
could play. Yeah.
we had to figure out like
Which
how
heaven forbid we have to talk to the parents now.
we had to do the awkward like asking somebody out at a bar like, I think you're pretty. Okay, cool, bye. Like,
Yeah.
like we had to do that. Whereas now, like the girls' generation, and luckily the girls are a little better at it, but the girls' generation, they don't have to do that. They can just like message somebody or Snapchat
Yeah.
or be like,
There's
ha,
dating
that was,
apps,
yeah.
and there's Which
Even-
I mean, don't get me
even the
wrong.
awkward-
It's like it's kind of like a double-edged sword because like there's benefit things to it
Mhm.
because we have a wider reach now.
Yep.
We can find people that actually do mesh with us, and that we're not just like, oh well, I keep this person around because
You don't have to be in an 8-year
I don't know who else I'm supposed to
relationship
be.
with somebody that you
Yeah,
don't want
like
to be.
I've never met anyone that is tolerable enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have a wider range. Like it's like all the dating apps now. You can be more picky
Yeah.
instead of just being like, well, I have to choose from my little town of fucking
Yeah, no shit.
Bodug, whatever.
That everybody's already
that everybody
dating.
else has already
Yeah.
dated. But you know,
But I mean, like, and yes, for that aspect, yes. But I'm saying like there's also negatives to where I feel like that is a good part of being a person, having rejection, having like, especially like with social like actual physical interactions. It's good for you to have to be shot down asking somebody out. It's good for you to learn how to talk to different kinds of people
yeah,
in person.
Yeah.
It's good. The biggest thing that I think of when it comes to that outside of dating is when you're hanging out with somebody and you make a joke and you think it's funny, but you can see that they don't find it funny. That part of it. Like
instead of
that
like
you miss out on when
over
you're
on messages where you're like, ha ha ha, lol, and they're like, they just don't message back, and you're like, oh, I don't know if they're busy or if they didn't find it funny or what. And then later you find out that they're talking shit to some other friend about, well, they made a joke about this and I thought it was horrible.
or you can
like,
see or you can see the sincerity in like, oh, I was just kidding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you with
like
that.
JK over like Messenger is so overdone.
Well, yeah.
In the same like LOL that you really can't tell if they really
it's like saying it's like a Canadian saying A at the end of a sentence.
Yeah, if
like,
you're just putting it out there so you don't get yelled at, or if you're saying it because like you actually laughed out loud, or you actually like, oh, I was just kidding. Whereas like those in-person interactions, like you can tell if somebody's like, oh, it was just a joke, and they really don't care that like they heard your, like you can tell it.
I'm the worst for LOL because I end every sentence in LOL. Every fucking
That's your
sentence.
uncomfortable. That's your uncomfortable response when you don't know how you're supposed to react to something. You just put LOL.
Yeah, like it's my thumbs up.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, yeah.
But like,
yeah. And it's funny because when people put thumbs up, I see it as like, yeah, whatever, fuck you.
But
the thumbs up is fuck you to me.
But also like in the same, and this is kind of where I started thinking about it and why I wanted to talk about it is because like there's also things like with the internet and with like social media or whatever that they have an advantage, but also I feel like we got, I don't know how to explain it. It's a deeper knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, and this is a bad example, but this is the example that I used the last time, is that like when it came to porn for our generation,
okay,
like it was like you had to go find it. Like you had to like,
yeah,
and you had that progressional, and this is,
and if your dad didn't have it in his drawer next to his bed, it was like you had to find it at like a friend's house.
And you had a progression. Is my point that I'm getting at, is that like you had a progression. Like every kid that got into porn or whatever, like started for the most part from like the ground up to like videos and like finding stuff. Whereas now, like, one, it's bombarded everywhere, but also I feel like the initial like find of porn for generation now
is so like
Yeah.
way up
Like
here
if we were to ask,
that
like if we were to sit down with our kids and talk about our interactions or like our first introductions to porn, like my first introduction to porn was finding like a nudie magazine,
Mhm.
and it wasn't even like a sex nudie magazine. It was just nude girls.
Mhm.
And like that was my introduction to porn. But
I-
where my children, they're probably like, oh yeah, I saw like full on intercourse on the internet, and I'm like, oh,
yeah, like and like
oh, okay.
and like
like
I'm talking like no, like
I didn't get to see that stuff until I was like
yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
16, 17.
I use this as my example for that part of it, for the porn part of it. I use this as my example. The first video I ever saw, as far as like porn-ish videos, like video, was
like internet video or like VHS video?
no, like internet video.
Oh, okay. I don't even remember my first.
Was a girl with big tits who had like water in a white T-shirt and was like, that was it.
Oh,
That was all I got for like the first thing. But
maybe
like,
that's why I'm so like sexually fucked up, is because like some of the things I saw early on were like way different.
no, like mine.
It wasn't
After
so
that.
like it wasn't so like calm.
After that, it was. But I'm saying like my first like video like on the internet was that, and that's what I'm saying. Like we had a progression, whereas like even if a kid were to go to Pornhub and like just open it, the videos are comparatively like you're starting up here.
Yeah.
Like there's no progression, and that's why like I would like to say that like sex and stuff with this generation is higher now because they're starting out. They're not getting that progression.
Maybe.
That's my thought anyway. But with that same thing, I feel like social media brings that too, is where like they're already starting like here. Like they've grown up. I said this to somebody else. They're growing up in a time where they've never had to not have social media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they've never had a time where they had to go knock on people's doors, unless like
and
your
it doesn't.
parents.
And like, I'm sorry, I don't care how much you monitor your children. I don't care how much you make sure that they don't have accessibility to these things. They do.
Mhm.
They do. Period. You have a cell phone that has accessibility to
Mhm.
it. All you have to do is leave that cell phone down for 1 minute. 1 minute, and that kid is gonna. You're gonna tell me your kid doesn't know your screen lock?
Mhm.
Okay, sure. I knew how to fucking break into my husband's phone, not this one.
Mhm.
You know, just by like going and figuring out what the pattern was. Like, it's not. I mean, it's not fucking.
But it's also in the same in.
But just like, but there's computer access everywhere. Schools have computers, and I understand they have, but they don't. I remember being able to get onto stuff like that when I was in school, even though we would get in trouble. Like, and the library, and you have friends' houses. Like, I'm sorry, but if your kids come over to my house, they have access to shit. Because my kids don't have like those things on their. Like, they have some like restrictions, but I can't restrict the internet from them. So it's better if they just have it, and I talk to them about it, than pretending that they never got to see it. Like, I'm sorry, but they see it. They see it.
But like in with how much access they have to things, that was another point that I was thinking of, is that we had to do, and kind of the same thought process that I was moving into with the other one, is that we had to figure stuff out for ourselves as far as things go. And they have so much, I'll say, information available to them that, and they don't have, like, Emma's getting a lot better with it, being like 15.
Yeah.
But they don't
almost
have
15.
Sorry, almost 15 in 2 days. But they don't have the life skills, the time served to distinguish whether things are real and what aren't. And there's so much stuff in there because people are allowed, I mean, obviously, like things like this, like podcasts, and like there's so much information built into there that, and there's no sticker on anything that says fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because all information is accepted on the internet, which is in one way is a good thing, but also if you don't have the wherewithal to know that
It's
not
like
everything
when
is
we were
real,
going to school and we found out that Wiki is like
you can
not legit.
Yeah,
It's not
that
law.
that
like
you could go into Wiki and
yeah,
search whatever
like
you want. Yeah.
we grew up thinking that like Wiki was like the internet's encyclopedia,
like the dictionary,
and we were like, oh, we can have all like every information we need is right here in our hands. And then our teachers are like, don't use Wiki, it's not
yeah,
a good resource. And we're like, what do you mean? You know, like everything I know is from Wiki.
and
what
like
do you mean?
and like the ability to have all that information is great. I have always said that the internet having as much information as it does is fantastic, but the generation that the girls are growing up in, there's so much in there, and there's so much that's like, oh, don't trust this, whether it's true or not. There's so much that I feel like it's tainting their ability to learn and have the ambition to research their own stuff.
Yeah.
That they're just going off of TikTok videos or Snapchat videos or like these like 30-second like, did you know that Donald Trump did like this?
Well,
instead of you know, investigating it, instead of being like, oh, is this really
which
true?
I get
or
Emma
whatever.
on that shit all the time because she'll be sitting in the room and she'll be like, did you know this? And I'll be like, actually it's this. And she's like, what? And I was like, look it up. And she'll be like, oh. Like, I don't remember what she said to me the other day. She was sitting there and she was like, what did she say? Damn it. But she was like, did you know blah, blah, blah? And I was like, well, that's cute that they, like, put those two things together, but that's not actually how it went. And she's like, what? And I was like, look it up. That's not actually what that word means. It's this. And she's like, nuh-uh. And she looked it up and she's like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And she's like, because in the thing it said, they speculate that this is where it might have came from. And I was like, yeah, because it didn't actually come from that. People just think it might have.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I feel like the negative is with the boom of social media is that that whole generation is only getting their information off of those things, and they don't want. I don't know if it's a want or if they don't feel the need.
Yeah.
But
I think
they have no want to see if it's true or not.
But I think that's where, as you as a parent, I think that's where it differs. Because when your child comes to you with this information, is like, did you know this? Instead of being like, well, you're wrong. Like, this is where today's generation of parents get kind of fucked up. Because they think that, because growing up the way we did, we're not our children's friends. We have to, we have to put our hand down. We have to make sure they, whatever. And I'm like, okay, no, it's like a boss and employee kind of relationship. There has to be a respect. Then there has to be, like, and I know people are going to argue with me about this, but it's working for me. And my kids are open with me. They tell me things. Even when I catch them doing something wrong, they still are like, yeah, I fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? And we talk about it. And I think it's even small things like this that respect is needed. Because if my daughter, like, let's say I'm just like constantly berating her or whatever, like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't fuck this, and she came to me and was like, hey, did you know this didn't happen? And I was like, no, you're fucking stupid, that's not how that happened. There's not going to be no respect, there's not going to be no conversation there. Whereas with me and Emma, we have the kind of respect and conversation with each other where if she comes in with information, I can be like, well, I was always taught this is how it is, maybe we should look it up and see how it actually is. And then if they're wrong, they're wrong. But we're not like, oh, see, boo, you're wrong. Like, I mean, sometimes me and Emma do that to each other just for fun, but it's not like in a disrespectful way. We do it for fun. And we know that. We both know that we're not like trying to piss each other off or make each other feel bad for being stupid. Like, it's not like that. It's like, and that's where I feel like I have a better like communication with my children, and they're going to be more knowledgeable about the things in the world, and they're going to see things on the internet. And if I'm not around to be like, well, we should look that up, they're going to think, well, maybe I should look this up because mom would look this up, because Zach would look this up, because, like mom always says I shouldn't trust everything on the internet. So maybe I should fact check, and see like,
and I've said this to the girls. And me and Emma had to talk about this a long time ago. But and I don't know how this is going to come off. It's probably going to come off mean, but I don't mean it that way. But I have a really big problem, and I know that this is a personal problem for you, but I have a really big problem with my kids looking dumb.
Yeah.
I have a really big problem with them just believing everything they see.
Well, because
And so,
it's part of being naive. You don't want your kids to be naive because
so
there's things in this world that they need to know.
yeah, and so I've always, and you've always been that way with both the girls, of like not smashing their dreams, so to speak, of like when they're really excited to tell you something
Yeah.
and being like, hey, guess what? I found this out. Not to be like, well, you're fucking wrong.
No, and
But
that's
to be
what I'm
li-
saying. Like, that's really cool. I was always
But,
taught it's
like,
like this. Maybe we
yeah.
should look more into that.
But also, I'm not going to let them be
Naive.
I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, that's really cool.
Yep.
And like let it go.
Yep.
Because I want them to have that, and me and you have talked about this, and it's a personality trait for the both of us. But me and you have talked about this, that I want them to grow up questioning things. I want them to grow up not just taking people's words for it. And that means mine too.
Well,
I'm not saying
And it goes
I
deeper
want
than
them-
that, too.
I want them to think for themselves instead of just waiting for somebody to give them the answer. Like even if it seems legit, to be like, oh well, let me see if it is. And if it is, then it is.
Well, okay. Here's some examples of how, and these are going to be like, I know. These are going to be like, people are going to be like, well, this only does like one aspect, but it kind of doesn't. Like, it shows that what I'm doing is working. So I've always, and Zach can contest to this, because, I mean, some people probably think, attest, whatever.
Contest.
Yeah, is against. And some people probably think I go too far with it, and I'm sure maybe I do a little or whatever, but I have 2 girls. And I, for a while, was a single mom with 2 young girls.
Mhm.
So, like, my girls have always been aware of how the world works
Mhm.
and how people are. I'm not going to say men, because it's not just men. And that's how I've always taught the girls, too. It's not just men. It's men, women, it's younger, like, teenagers, it's old people. Like, it could be literally anyone.
Mhm.
And I've always told the girls, like, you have to watch for signs. You have to watch for things. You have to keep yourself safe. And so I have, like, a few situations that have already happened to the girls where I know what I have taught them over the years
Works.
was effective.
Mhm.
Because, well, like that one time where we were at the doctor's appointment. So when I was pregnant with Wyatt, we went to a doctor's appointment, and I had to get my glucose test done. And Emma called us. She had to walk home from school that day.
That's the one that I always think of.
She
I was
had to-
literally just going to bring that
She had
up.
to walk home from school that day because we were going to be at the doctor's. And the school was only like a few blocks from our house, but she had to cross a main road.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't something we normally like let her do. But she was in middle school. It was only a few blocks. Like, we were like, she'll be okay. Like,
Mhm.
and so she was supposed to walk home from school that day and then go back to the bus stop to pick up her sister if we weren't home yet.
Mhm.
Which the bus stop was literally like at the end of the block.
Mhm.
At the Boys and Girls Club. But she had called us on her walk home and was like freaking out a little bit and was like, what should I do? This is what's happening. And what was happening is someone was following her in a vehicle. And when the vehicle had like gone past her and parked at the church that she turns at,
Mhm.
and when she had walked past the vehicle at the church, she had saw the man masturbating in his car. And so she was freaking out because 1, he's following her, and 2, now he's performing an act like in
Mhm.
her view. Like it's obvious that she can see what's happening. It wasn't like she was like specifically looking into his car to see what was happening. Like, she just happened to walk by and she could see what he was doing.
Mhm.
And so she's calling us freaking out. She's like, what should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I was like, go straight. Like, Zach was already on the phone with the police while I was on the phone with her. And she was describing the vehicle to us so we could describe it to the police. And I told her, I was like, go into the church or go into the Boys and Girls Club, because at that point she was right there on that corner where she was in between those 2 buildings. And I was like, either go into the church or go into the Boys and Girls Club. Tell them what's happening. Tell them that you just need to stand there until your stepdad can come get you.
Mhm.
And he came and got her. Now, I'm not saying that not most kids would do this, not because I would like to think and hope that most kids would call their parents or call 911 or call someone that they know and be like, hey, this is fucked up, this is what's happening. But there are clearly, because we've seen it in news and everything else, there are situations where kids won't call out, they won't ask for help, they won't run into the church or the Boys and Girls Club, they won't call a family member or the 911, and they will get abducted or molested or whatever, or and who knows, that guy was even doing anything like that. He might have just been mentally handicapped and was just happened to be the same route, but it's not the point. The point is that she was in a situation,
She felt uncomfortable.
and she felt uncomfortable, and she did what she was supposed to do. And like we told her, we're like, hey, for next time, just call the police right away, so that way they can get there right away. There's no like in between time. I was like, you can have the police call us so we can come get you. The police will do that, but like call them right away. Call them first, and they'll tell you to go in the Boys and Girls Club. They'll tell you to go, And she's like, okay. And then we just had, and this wasn't like that, but we just had another incident with Emma where she went to go spend the night at her friend's house down the street. This was literally like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even think I got to tell you about this yet. So Emma went to spend the night at her friend's house like a few days ago, and her friend decided to ride their bikes to the park in Little Chute, which Little Chute's only like, I don't know, like 5 blocks from where we live right now. Like, we live in Kekana, but Little Chute is like a street away. And Emma did not know the way to this park, so she was following her friend there. And then when they went to leave, Emma's bike chain, like both tires were flat, and the bike chain kept falling off, so Emma couldn't keep up with her friend. So she told her friend, she's like, hey, can you wait up for me? I don't know the way back. And her friend was like, no, I don't want to wait for you, and just left her with the bike in an area she didn't know. And Emma's phone doesn't have service right now, so she called the cops. Perfect. I would much rather her do that than be wandering. Emma has absolutely zero sense of direction. Zero. And so for her to do that, that was really smart of her. Like, she didn't, and she even said she thought about like knocking on a door and asking to use their phone, but she was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to knock on the wrong door or something. And I was like, no, girl, that's perfect. Like, yeah, don't be afraid to knock on doors if that's your last resort. But, also having the forethought of I could possibly be putting myself in a worse situation by knocking on a door is also pretty fucking smart. And the cop drove her home, and they left the bike there, and he was like, you can go pick up the bike now or, in the morning, but we can't guarantee they'll see me there. And I was like, I don't care about the bike.
It's a fucked up bike anyway.
It was Maddie's bike.
Oh.
So I was like, she left her there with the bike. Yeah. She clearly doesn't care about that bike. So, but, yeah, so it's just situations like that. But then even Alice has just had an incident so Alice goes to this friend's house here in town, and a couple doors down from her friend's house is an old man who lives there by himself. And Alice's friend likes to go over there and talk to the old man all the time, and like eat lunch with him, and like have snacks and popsicles and stuff. And like, as someone who thinks the way I do, yes, that makes me uncomfortable. But also, I remember being a little kid going to like
random people's
houses and eating popsicles there and stuff like that. Like, I know that not everybody is fucked up.
Yeah.
But then Alice was like, and I didn't think anything of it until he asked us to come up into the attic. And Aurora, like, Alice's friend was like, yeah, come up here. It's fun, blah, blah, blah. And Alice was like, okay. And they came up there, and then the guy took a picture of the two of them sitting in the attic. And Alice was like, I left. And I was like, no, that's perfect. Because why the fuck is an old man taking a picture of a girl he doesn't even know?
And she said it in a way of not, and I know how this is going to sound, and this is why I'm putting this out there, is that she didn't say it in a way of like
this was the right thing to do, right, Mom? Like in a
like she knew it was the right thing to do.
yeah, like she said it in a way of like this was because
This was weird.
Because Alice talks, and this is why I'm bringing it up this way. Alice talks how her brain thinks.
Yeah.
So like normal kids, if they're like looking for like approval from like their parents on something, they'll be like, and I did this, right? Like, but Alice talks how her brain works, and she's told that story in the way of her brain processing each
As it was happening
Yeah.
in the scenario.
and so like for her to do that and for her to be like, and then I left like right away. Like it was like she got it.
And now I understand that there are situations in which this stuff can happen, and maybe he just, because he's really good friends with the little girl's mom, and so like maybe he just likes, because he said he was taking a picture to send to her mom, and like, so maybe it was innocent, maybe it was, but on the off chance it wasn't, she is now stranded in an attic with a grown man.
Well,
as a 12-year-old girl, like.
Regardless, like
it's strange.
Regardless, like I told her, and like I've told you, and like I've told Emma too.
Just don't put yourself in
that
these positions.
it doesn't matter what the situation might be on a positive end. If you're uncomfortable, it doesn't matter the situation.
Whatever your gut feeling is, go with that.
It doesn't matter the person you're with. It doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter if you do not feel comfortable with something. Then you should not feel bad. About removing that uncomfortable feeling.
Like, I'm sorry, people can get mad at me and be like, well, you don't know that he was going to do that. You don't know that this person was going to do that. Okay, I understand that. But at the same time, if my daughter were to be molested or raped, in court, they're literally going to ask her, well, did you feel uncomfortable when he took a picture of you? And if she says yes, they're going to be like, well, then why didn't you leave? Excuse me? So if that's how the court is going to treat it, if that's how everybody else is going to treat it, if everybody else is going to be like, well, why'd you dress like that? Then my daughter has the right to be like, I felt uncomfortable. I fucking left. Sorry.
And also
if you get to judge women based on what actions they took while getting molested or raped, then we get to judge all of you based on the actions you did previous to us getting raped or molested.
And like I've said, and like we've talked about, I feel like the two of them having that wherewithal is a good thing. And I know that you just talked about that, but also I would rather them get out of situations like that than to sit there and be like, well, it's probably not as bad as I feel, and then something happened. Like I'd rather them go away from every situation that makes them feel uncomfortable, whether it is a situation or not, than the one time where they're well, nothing's happened. So
plus, this is the whole problem that women have in general, because I've been a victim to it. I've been a victim to this makes me uncomfortable, but maybe I'm just being too sensitive to, okay, am I getting raped right now? Like, or am I just not speaking up enough? Like, I've been a victim to that. So like,
and then
I don't want my girls to be like that. I want them to know, like, oh, this man's making me uncomfortable. I'm going to let him know, you're making me uncomfortable. I'm walking away from you.
And me and you have talked about this.
I want them to be straightforward. I want no to be a sentence for them. I want them to have that confidence in them of, no, you're not doing this.
I've said, and me and you have talked about this, and I've said this to the girls before too, that I don't know what it is, and me and you have talked about this. I've said this for years. I don't know what it is, but your body, your brain knows more than you do.
Oh yeah.
You feeling uncomfortable, you feeling uneasy, you being around people and being like, oh, I feel like hazy around this person
and
or whatever.
And I understand that's difficult with people who have anxiety, because then you don't know if it's just your anxiety playing into it or if it's whatever. But it's better off just listening.
But that's what I'm saying. But regardless of whether you know where it comes from or know why you feel that way, removing yourself from that feeling is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Ever.
No.
And especially in situations like that, like I said, it's better to have 100 experiences where you walk away that maybe 50 of them would have been good than one that turns out bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying. I know people don't agree with my method of parenting, but it's been effective for me and my kids. Yes, they've done shit. Yes, they've been through shit, but
also
they're strong, independent girls.
I completely agree.
And they are, when they put their mind to something, it gets done.
But also going back to what I was saying about that though, is that also giving them the information in a time of, to the social media thing, in a time where like it's either one side or the other, where they can't really distinguish. I feel like you really can't distinguish what's true and what's not, in a very hyper what's the word? It starts with a P. Propaganda environment.
Yeah.
I feel like having those conversations of like, hey, I know that like, I don't know. I feel like you have a really good balance. I would say both of us, but I can only speak for me seeing you. But I feel like you have a very good balance of positivity in that too. Of not like media does, of like everybody's horrible, everybody's gonna kill you. But like you have a very good balance with the girls of like letting them know how the real world works, but also like, but it's also
Not
possible
everyone's
that people
out to get you.
Yeah.
Like there are good people out there. And
like,
there are people you can go talk to. There are people you can trust. Like
and that's what I'm saying. Even the honesty you specifically have as a parent, but especially the both of us, but talking to you, even the honesty that you have with the girls, I feel like is helpful because you've told the story to the girls of why you were apprehensive about me like coming into their lives.
Oh yeah.
Like you've even talked to the girls of like, why I didn't know what kind of person he was, why I didn't know if he was going to hurt you guys.
I didn't know if I trusted him yet.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was trustworthy.
Yeah, and even that type of honesty with somebody that, I mean, I would like to think that they trust now.
Yeah.
But like even that honesty of like them realizing, oh, even people like this, like I still have to like be smart about it.
Yeah, even though like mom's friends
just
with this
because
guy
I love
and she
them
really likes him doesn't mean that she trusts him to be around her daughters. And like I know the reason I'm that way is because of experience, but if I can instill that in my children without the experience, I mean that's amazing.
I feel like that's the big job as a parent is to give them the information without the trauma.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, because like growing up, we went to those, we went all to those like fucking, the assembly group things or whatever, and they'd be like, if you see something, say something. If someone does something, speak up. And like it's usually someone really close to you. It's usually an uncle or a stepdad or a dad or a, and they they say all that stuff. And when I know for me for a fact, when I was younger, I was like, yeah, okay, none of my fucking family's gonna do that to me. Like I grew up with 4 dads. I had my dad and my 3 uncles. Yep. They were 4 dads to me. There was no difference between my dad and my 3 uncles. And so when I go to those assemblies and hear that, I'd be like, yeah, okay. As if, like, it would never, my uncles would never. And like, it wasn't my uncles, it wasn't my dad who that experience happened with. But it was someone that my mom brought into the situation.
It was somebody that you didn't expect.
It was someone I didn't expect. It was someone that my mom brought into our lives. It was someone that was, a father figure in my life. Like, I mean, I don't see him as a father figure, but at the time, I'm not going to deny it. He was. He acted as one. So it literally could be your uncle. It literally could be your dad. And it's like, oh, like that was that eye-opening moment for me, because like when that happened, when that situation went down, I was like, fuck it.
They were right.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to badmouth anyone in my family. I'm not trying to like anything like that. But later in life, my uncle was dating a girl that was the same age as me.
Hmm.
And for me, it was like,
It was the same thing.
It
It was
was-
that same.
it was
yeah.
that same trigger of like,
Oh,
gross.
yeah.
And then, like, I understand, like, some people, you know, ageist or whatever. I get it. And you believe what you believe. That's fine. And I didn't, you know, I never attacked my uncle for it. I never attacked her for it. Like, I did get in an argument with her once, but it wasn't about the age.
That.
But, you know, in my head, it was like, he changed her diapers.
Mhm.
Like, that's how my brain worked.
Yeah.
Because he changed my diapers.
Mhm.
And me and her were the same exact age. So he changed her diapers.
Mhm.
Ew.
Mhm.
Ew. You know? And like, yeah, we were 24 at the time. So it wasn't like he was dating a 16-year-old or whatever. Like, we were like halfway through our 20s. But
Yeah.
still, like,
Mhm.
he was like 50 something, if not 60 something. Like,
Mhm.
what? Like, what? You know? Like, you know, I don't know. It was just, and like I said, I get it. Like, some people are very open-minded about the age thing, and I
Mhm.
get that. I know how I feel about it. I struggle with age gaps.
Mhm.
I struggle with, you know, that idealism. Like, I could, the furthest from my age I've ever been with was like, I think there was a 6-year age gap. And that was even like strange.
Mhm.
Like, there was things that we didn't have in common. And I don't look back at that and think, ew, because like I was the younger person in the relationship, so I don't look back at it and go, ew, that's gross. Because he was like very like open about how it's weird.
Mhm.
Like, he didn't want to be with me at first because of how young I was. Like, he was like, I don't know, this is weird. Like, and so I don't blame anyone in the situation, and I'm not like, ew, that was gross of him. Like, I don't know why he did that, because like I was an adult at this point. I knew what I was doing too.
Mhm.
But even that, it was only 6 years, but even that was weird for me,
Mhm.
and that was weird for him. So like,
The fact that it's not weird for
anything
people.
bigger than that, how is that not weird for
Yeah.
people? Like, and I'm not trying to put anyone down, because my mom and my stepdad have a fairly large age gap too, but I think it's just different I think the age gap is different when you're in an older age range.
Mhm.
I think if you're an older person, like if you're past your 30s, if you're like 30s or older and you're dating someone that's in like their teens or 20s, that's strange.
Mhm. I
But
say
if you're like a 60-something-year-old dating like a 30-something-year-old or like somewhere in that age range, I mean, I don't know. I don't find it that strange anymore.
I say this all the time with age gaps, and I understand, and there are people that have backed me up on this. When you have kids, that age gap becomes different.
Oh, for sure.
When you don't have kids, it's just a number. And I
It
don't say
never
that
was
like
for me,
I don't
though.
I don't
It
say
never
that.
was
no,
for
no,
me,
no, no,
though.
no. I'm saying like for most people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that in like the creepy way. I'm saying like your brain.
You're like, who cares?
Yeah, your brain doesn't register.
And then
that.
you have
But
kids.
when you have kids, you start the moment they're born, that's the age range that you like start out with.
Well,
So
okay.
if I'm 30
Yeah.
and I start dating an 18-year-old, Emma's
Like, yeah,
almost
she's 18.
Emma's almost
She's an adult,
Emma's
but at the
almost-
same time.
Emma's almost 15. That's 3 years.
Yeah.
That's 3 years older than my daughter.
Yeah.
That starts to register. Where you're like, ew. Like
Yeah, that's weird.
like that stuff starts to
like
register.
they could be best friends. Like,
Whereas if you don't have kids, that never you
see,
never have
and
a
this
frame
is
of
where I
reference.
know I've done right in picking the right man, because in my family, that's not a thing. In my family, in the generational curses of the
You're
Cheryl,
weirdo.
I should be married to a man who keeps divorcing people and getting married to 16-year-olds.
Mm-mm.
So, so for me to be with someone who's like, ew, 18, gross, like, that's nice. It's nice to
never
hear
got-
that.
No, I never. The situation that me and you have talked about with somebody else,
about them being with a younger person
Hmm.
and like getting caught.
Yeah.
I never understood that. I was like, that wouldn't even be a thing. Like,
Yeah.
like taking away the fact that if she can't go to a bar, like that rule that you have, if you can't take her to a bar after whatever when they start IDing.
Well, that's not even my rule. That's just the minimum rule I think every man should have in
I
general.
agree.
If you can't take her to a bar, then what the fuck are you doing?
If she can't get in with her ID, then if she can't get a drink, then you shouldn't be dating. I agree. But like, I completely agree. But like the fact,
Just play it safe, guys. Like, people lie.
even like, I shouldn't say the attraction, because there are younger people that do look older, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not necessarily the attraction part of it, but just like I said, conversations with Emma compared to conversations with you are two completely different things. And I know that I'm different,
Yeah.
but like, if I can't have a conversation with you without you being in your phone or without you talking about like,
Or even questioning what
like,
that is.
yeah, like, oh, I heard
okay.
this on the oldie station, like that type of, like, no.
I couldn't either. I don't understand it either because I couldn't either.
I couldn't do it.
Like with our friend, he has an age gap of like what are, I don't know, we're like 5-6 years apart, maybe.
5.
Are we? No,
Yeah.
you might be.
I am. Yeah, I'm 5.
So I'm like 8.
Yeah.
I don't know. Our age gap is it's there. Like he was in elementary when I was in high school. It's there. Anyways, but like I love having conversations with him. I could sit in there and talk with him for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And he is so smart and intellectual, and it can just keep rolling. But there are things that happen in the conversation that I'm like, no. There's no fucking way.
Or there have been times where he's
Like-
done that to you, where he's been like, "Oh, I've heard of that."
Yeah.
Like when you made reference to things,
Yeah.
and you're like,
It's like
"Oh,
talking
yeah,
it's
that's
like
right."
talking to Captain America.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like he's like,
Yeah.
I don't understand this
yeah,
reference. Like,
yeah.
it's like you're like, oh,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
you're not a 90s
You
baby. I
did.
forgot. like he is a 90s baby, but he's not because he's at the like late
like-
90s. So
I
it's
was gonna
like,
say he's like towards Backstreet Boys.
yeah, he's a 2000s
He's
baby.
like-
Like, straight up. I don't care what he says. But it's like, you know, it doesn't matter how great the conversation goes. It takes only one or two of those like
feel like that would be-
moments that I'm like,
I was gonna say, I feel like that
you're a
would be,
child.
I feel like that would be the trigger for me. I feel like that would be a real like eye opener trigger for me, even if I could like
I would be
find somebody.
reminded all the time
That's what I'm
of how
saying.
much of a child I'm with.
Yeah,
and
but-
not in a mean way, like, oh, you're so mature, but like in a like a
Oh yeah, there's that
oh,
gap.
you haven't experienced the world like I
Yeah.
have. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's right. You don't
Like the
remember
conversa-
9/11.
like the
like
You don't remember them wheeling. Hold on. Here's a time capsule moment for you. You don't remember them wheeling in the TV
Yeah.
with the VHS player
to watch
on
9/11
wheels to watch the 9/11 video
Yeah,
over
honestly.
and over and over
all
again.
day.
All day.
Like, yeah, you grew up in the 2000s, so you obviously had to do what all of us had to do, and we had to relive 9/11 every fucking year.
Yeah.
Not remember, relive.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a whole nother bag of
You know what's funny?
grinds my gears.
You know what's funny to me? No, I brought this up before. You want to know what's funny to me? We have such an affinity for 9/11. And I get it. I really do. Especially like being in the time frame to be able to recall it in real time.
Yeah,
I get it. But we don't have the same affinity for Pearl Harbor.
that's what
You
gets
know?
me. That's what's always bothered me, all right?
There are people.
'Cause we-
There are people that do post it, and there are people that do talk about it,
yeah.
but not in the same way.
Don't
Not
get
in
me
like a 9/11.
Yeah, and this is what's always bothered me, even as a young child in elementary school all the way up through high school, with 9/11 versus like Pearl Harbor or Kennedy assassination or anything like that, right? Granted, Pearl Harbor does have a day
Red graded.
of the year. Shut up. There is a day of the year in which we reflect on Pearl Harbor,
Mhm.
just like we have 9/11 is the day of the year that we are to remember 9/11.
Mhm.
Okay, great. but we don't relive Pearl Harbor on that day.
Mhm.
That day, we don't have to sit in a moment of silence for Pearl Harbor. On that day, we don't have to sit in our classroom, every fucking classroom of the day, and watch a video of the fucking ships being bombed by planes. Like, we don't have
You
to
don't have to see Ben Affleck go up in a fucking plane every year.
we don't have to relive it every fucking year.
Mhm.
Whereas 9/11, like, if you didn't grow up in the same time era we grew up in, you don't understand this because it's not happening anymore.
No.
And it didn't happen before, obviously, because you're an adult. But we literally, every 9/11, we had to relive it. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to take a moment of silence because it's 9/11. It was like, oh, we're going to take a moment of silence in every fucking class because it's 9/11.
Mhm.
And this is like middle school and high school people. So we had classes. It wasn't just elementary class. We had to do one, like I know you had a little more elementary after 9/11 than I did, but I only had 1 year of elementary after 9/11.
Well, we had to do projects every year. It's for the same point.
For 9/11.
Yeah, for the same point as you're talking
Yeah.
about. We had to do like projects for 9/11 every year.
Where you probably had to
It
stand up
wasn't
in front of the class
wasn't-
and do
yeah.
a speech about it. So every fucking student, all 30 of you,
Mhm.
had to go up there and talk to the whole class about 9/11.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's like, and then every fucking class, like especially if it was a history class or like a, whatever kind of class, like some sort of social studies, we had to watch the video. We had to learn about the book Fahrenheit 51 or
Mhm.
whatever it's called. We had to learn about whatever. We had to talk about
So,
the
okay.
conspiracy theories of the steel melting
Can I
and the jet fuel, and we had to it wasn't just learning about it. It was literally reliving that moment every fucking year. Like, you can ask my mom. I don't know if she remembers, so maybe don't ask her, but there were years where I would pretend to be sick on 9/11 because I'm like, I'm not fucking going to school today.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
We're
not doing this
it.
shit.
It's like the last day of school.
Like even
it's the
now,
same thing
because of
like,
how that was in school,
you hate it.
even now as an adult, you can ask him. Every year when it's 9/11, I don't open my phone.
She doesn't open her phone
I
or
don't-
watch TV.
I don't go on Facebook. I don't
Mhm.
watch actual TV. Like, I'll watch like a show on like something like, like one of the like Disney or something like that, but I'm not going to turn on live TV. I'm not going to open my Facebook. I'm not leaving the house.
But going back to the social media thing though, but do you remember,
Oh.
and this is we can stop.
Yeah, I'm a ball
I'm
of
sorry.
sweat.
I know, I can see it.
Like, it's pouring off of
Your
me right now.
boobies are really like
Am I
shining right-
glistening?
yeah.
Your face is glistening too. You're very glistening.
But the social media thing, do you remember the devil's face in the cloud of the
Oh
Twin
my
Towers?
God,
Okay,
yes.
so that kind of stuff.
Folding the 20.
Yeah, so that
So
kinda,
it's the two towers being burnt in the Pentagon
Well,
if you
that-
turn it the other way.
well, that too. But like that kind of stuff is what I was talking about like doing your own research.
Yeah.
Is that when that came out, I remember when that came out in that little like post or like the Snapchat video of the devil's face in it, you had to watch the video. You had to find a video of the
Yeah.
original thing. You had to watch it. You had to stop it. You had to make
Yeah.
sure, like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, is that nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, if that were to come, if that were to happen right now,
Well,
and
it's
somebody to post that, they would be like, oh shit, did you, like,
Well, and it's like every year, like when you were going to school and you had to do this, it was like every year they try to make it more and more traumatizing.
yeah.
Because like that, if you were there and you watched it happen in real time,
Mhm.
you saw everything.
Mhm.
You saw it. You saw the planes hit. You saw people jumping from the building. You saw the firefighters fighting through shit. You
Mhm.
saw the aftermath. You saw people digging people out. You
Mhm.
saw it all. You saw people running around looking like gray ash.
Mhm.
Like, you saw it all.
For the whole, like, half the city.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you saw it. You were there. You saw it. On the news, you saw it.
Mhm.
Okay? But it was like every year after that, they try to make it more and more traumatizing
They
by
add-
emphasizing on these specific things, because they were gathering up more and more footage of the thing
Yeah.
happening from different aspects, and was like, I remember watching a video in high school. My high school, I think it was my social studies teacher, but it might have been my math teacher, because my math teacher did it a lot too. But I remember them showing a video. It was like a documentary video on the people who jumped.
Mhm.
And it was like, it was just footage after footage after footage of literally
people
bodies
jump,
smashing into cement.
Mhm.
And it was like, why are we watching this?
Mhm.
Why are we, as teenagers, we are not even adults yet,
Mhm.
watching bodies smash on the cement? I can't go to a movie theater and watch a rated R movie without a parent's permission. But I'm going to sit in my social studies class and watch bodies smashing on cement, and we're okay with this?
Mhm.
Like, and people wonder why our generation's so traumatized by this. Like,
Mhm.
because we literally had to relive it in the
We
most traumatizing ways.
I was gonna say because we got traumatized, shoved. We got trauma
Yeah.
shoved in our face for
Like, we
years.
saw footage of people literally trying to run down the staircase, being interrupted by a plane, like levels of this building on fire, and having to head back up to the roof.
Mhm.
For what? Like, you're not going anywhere. You're
Mhm.
going to die.
Mhm.
Like, and we knew that watching this video because we saw it happen. Like,
Mhm.
and it's like, it's more traumatizing watching these people again
Mhm.
and getting to know, like, we have to watch the family interviews. We have to watch, so we know these people now. It's not just people that are stuck in the top of a building. We have a connection with these people now. We know their families. We know their names. We know their pet dog.
Mhm.
Like, we saw it all. Like, it was just a lot.
Mhm.
And that's why I like I said, that's why now I'm
there's-
just not interested.
And I'm sure.
Like, if I had a flag, I'd put it at half mast on 9/11. I'm not going to be an
And
asshole.
I'm sure.
Yes, we should remember, but please don't traumatize me with the fucking information no
And
more.
I'm sure that they did it to some degree with every other like major thing.
I don't feel like they did it like that.
Okay,
though.
but this is what I was gonna say though.
Because if
I'm
you
sure.
because
I'm
my
sure.
mom,
No, I'm not saying to the same degree. I will 100% agree with you about 9/11. That it was a very like we are
Shove it
going
in your
we
face.
are going to make sure everybody remembers like every aspect of this. But I'm sure to some degree they did it with other things like World War II and like Pearl Harbor and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I think it was just so rapid with 9/11. Like the first movie, again, this is a bad example, but like the first like film we got of Pearl Harbor was Pearl Harbor. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
which
I'm sure
wasn't
there
a
was
great.
other stuff before that, but
which-
the first like big like
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like big, like in your face, like everybody's gonna see this, which wasn't a great movie, but it wasn't bad.
I don't know.
I think people
I've
hate
only
on.
watched it once, and I never watched it all the way through.
I think people hate on Pearl Harbor way too much. I think that movie is not as bad as everybody thinks it is. But sorry, all
No,
right.
it's okay. I'm just dying.
But like,
I'm
and
losing weight.
and like I said, I'm sure that like with Vietnam and stuff like that, like you saw footage of people dying and carnage and shit like that. But I feel like it was how rapid 9/11 was.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just, oh, we've collected footage. It was in the meantime of us collecting footage, we're gonna show you this. Now that we have all this footage, now we're gonna show you this plus this. And then we're gonna show you all of this together every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like with other like wars and things, yes, we did it in a remembrance or like, hey, this is what's going on overseas or whatever.
Yeah, but like even with Pearl Harbor,
But like a update.
it wasn't like every year my school was like, hey, this is what happened on this day. They were like, it was like maybe once every few years. They were like, hey, just so you know, this is what happened on this day. You know what I mean? And like, I think that's what's always bothered me about 9/11. It's always been so shoved in my fucking face. And even now as an adult with social media, it's still shoved in my fucking face. I know it happened. I was there. I was there. Like, I remember coming down and for the first time ever in my life watching my dad cry.
Yeah.
Like, I know the significance of it.
Mhm.
Like,
Anyway,
so
thanks for talking.
yeah,
Sorry.
that was a weird transition.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, so the whole weird sequel thing joke, just so you're in on the inside joke thing here. Okay. So I watched the movie.
It's
If.
hold on. She's not original. It's a Facebook thing first before she did it.
What?
That's a weird sequel. There's a Facebook post first.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, you've never seen that?
Of If and Voices?
No, of
Oh.
other movies.
Yeah, I've seen it of other stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was talking about. The joke itself was not.
No, I was letting them in on our version of
sorry.
the inside joke. Anyhow, so I watched the movie If, the one with Ryan Reynolds and the imaginary friends. And
That would have been a better title.
I'm not really letting anything, maybe a spoiler alert. So, okay, I'm just going to say spoiler alert for the movie If and the movie The Voices. All right? So if you don't want to hear that, shoo. Bye. Let's end the podcast anyways after this. So, so the
I
movie...
really just want to turn it off right now.
The movie If, Ryan Reynolds is like trying to get imaginary friends that kids have grown too old, new kids. And so he lives in this like apartment upstairs of this girl who's staying there, and he's got imaginary friends in the house with him. And there's a scene where he's like behind the door talking to the imaginary friend. And in my head, I'm like, oh, so everyone else just thinks Ryan Reynolds is schizophrenic. And then I have myself a good giggle because of the movie The Voices, which is another Ryan Reynolds movie, not as friendly, not family friendly at all.
Mm.
That is about Ryan. This is like super spoiler. So he is a schizophrenic in that movie who talks to his pets, his cat and his dog, and he kills people
And talks to them.
And
thinks
talks to
they're still
them.
alive.
and thinks they're still alive.
Yeah.
And so I had a funny thought when Ryan Reynolds was talking to the imaginary friend behind the door. I was like, oh, so this is like before he starts killing people. Got it. And so I was like, oh, this is just the prequel to The Voices.
Yep, still funny.
Yeah, it was funny. So it was a funny thought.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm done. I'm out. I am a sweating ball of mess. I need a shower,
Thanks for talking.
even
and
though I've
putting up with-
naturally given myself one already.
putting up with the heats. I appreciate it.
It's like fucking 90 here. I know everybody's gonna be like, well, it's like 115 in California. It's like 140 in Texas. Okay,
Yeah, but
we
our
have
house is 70 degrees.
we
so-
have
and
high.
Cheryl's very comfortable in that house. So
I am. We have high humidity here. Not like Florida high, but they have water. We don't have that. So, so this is hot. Okay. It feels like 115. Okay, and we're in a closed garage right now.
yeah.
Anyways, beans and cornbread. Beans and cornbread. Beans and cornbread. I'll see y'all later.